We're going best case, worst case. The Vegas has the over/under set at 4.5, which is, we did our tiers. I think this is a bottom barrel ACC team.
Yeah, no doubt about it. They had a very busy offseason, as one does when your head coach leaves after the bowl game to go be a coordinator in the NFL. Wild stuff from Jeff Hafley there. So they bring in Bill O'Brien, like you said, a guy that knows the Northeast, worked many, many years with New England Patriots. So you think on paper it kind of makes sense, but then you remember what he's done as a head coach. Mm-hmm. And especially in college. I mean, he had a good stint at Penn State, but his stint as Alabama's offensive coordinator, very underwhelming. I won't get into what all he did in the NFL. That's been highly publicized. I think everybody knows about that. Looking at his coordinators, he brings in Tim Lewis, longtime defensive coach, spent a lot of time with the Giants and the Steelers. I guess they're going to transition to a 3-4, which from what I was reading kind of fits their roster better than a 4-3 would. They've got good playmakers at linebacker and defensive line, so that will help them there just to make those players make plays. They don't have a ton of talent on this roster, although I'll get into a second. They brought in a lot. But offensive coordinator is going to be a guy named Will Lawing, I think is how you say it. He was the Patriots tight ends coach most recently, viewed as an up-and-comer in the business. So to me, that means Bill O'Brien's going to be running that offense. Brings this guy in to kind of help him game plan and things like that. But O'Brien's going to basically be running the offense. So look at who they brought in, man. Two really good wide receivers. Jaron Bradley from Texas Tech, big 6'5", just nightmare to cover. Career at Texas Tech, really good, 92 catches, over 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns, had a really great 2022, took a step back last year. And Jaden McGowan from Vanderbilt, just kind of a speedster, do-it-all receiver, described as a special teams ace. They bring in some help on the defensive side, Bryce Brown from Georgia State, Ryan Turner from Ohio State, Stead McDonald to beef that defensive line comes in from Illinois. So, but their quarterback returns Thomas Castellanos, really good running the ball last year, which you'll see as a theme of the ACC. These quarterbacks, they run the ball pretty well. Over 1,100 yards on the ground last year, 13 touchdowns, but he threw 14 interceptions, second most in the ACC. But, for Boston College to have a lot more success this year, their defense is going to have to be better. Like I said, I think that 3-4, the book on Lewis is that he's an aggressive defensive guy. So the defense is going to have to be better. That 3-4 should put them in better position. Before we get into the schedule, I think Vegas is spot on right there with that 4.5 wins. They're going to be right around that number. I think they're going to be a little bit better than that, but Vegas always knows, and I think they hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah, I mean, look, you kind of laid out, what they were doing. Momentum coming off a bowl win, that was good for them. Will, when we looked at the floor and the ceiling and, it was a big bowl win there for them. And bowl games are weird, first off, because if teams lose them, we often say, well, it wasn't that big of a deal. If you win them, it is a big deal. So it is, right. I don't know. We kind of have to, gauge that. But I did want to throw up here because I've got the schedule and then our notes that we went through here. You have that nice momentum, but the defense has to be better. And that's also going to be another kind of theme with a team that, a lot of our fans of the show are going to be tuned into. But when you look at what, this ACC has, there isn't necessarily a lot of separation, I feel like, when you go from teams like 4 to 10. Like anything can happen. And that's oftentimes like what the ACC and the Big 12 give you, just kind of bloodbath, through the months of September, October, November. When I look at this schedule, September is going to be a tough month for Boston College, I think, in my opinion, especially with a date against Florida State and Louisville. Now, I will say, Will, is it the Red Ribbon game? What is the game that Boston College plays each year? Red bandana. They almost beat Florida State up there. And I don't think this is as good of a Florida State team, so who knows? But, Castellanos, I think, is a guy that is more than capable of winning you a couple games that you shouldn't. But I don't know if this team's going to be consistent enough on the defensive side of the football. So I know we've got kind of our floor and ceiling here. When you look at this, you've got literally a bye week smack dab in the middle of the schedule, which is kind of crazy to look at. You don't often see it like that. I don't know.
It's a very navigable schedule to me.
Yeah, it's
especially
not
conference schedule.
It is.
You got to go to Florida State. You go to Virginia. Shouldn't be much of a I think
Missouri.
on on paper, Virginia Tech or Virginia, I should say, and Boston College about the same. Go to Virginia Tech and go to SMU. A lot of home games in conference is what I'm keying in on. But like you said, go to Missouri, that's gonna be tough. They host Michigan State, which is an interesting matchup there. Host North Carolina, Pitt, Louisville, Syracuse. So when I look at them, I'm pegging them their floor at 4-8 and a ceiling of 8-4. Because like you said, they could steal some of these games. Could they go on the road and beat a Virginia? I think it's very possible. We'll get more to SMU schedule. They have that wild travel schedule that Boston College does not have. They don't have to go to the West Coast. So does that play an advantage the furthest west they go? In conference is SMU, but Missouri a little bit further. They could steal a couple games here.
Yeah, they could steal a couple games. It feels like they're going to have to do their damage within the conference. I just don't know how much confidence I have for them to go on, to Far Field and beat Missouri. I'll be honest with you. I don't even know, like, this is a new Michigan State team they're going to be facing. So I'm kind of sitting there right there with you. I think 4-8 for me is that floor. You could argue 3-9 if we're talking about wheels falling off. I'm going to go, though, 7-5 for my ceiling. I know you went 8-4. But you just kind of look at here. I think this team is a team that can get to a bowl game, can get a game above 500, and then kind of see what happens. If you can get to 6-6, 7-5, and win a bowl game in Bill O'Brien's first year, you do establish some confidence and even more momentum heading into 2025. I think because people are kind of eager to see, like we are, what is Bill O'Brien going to look like at the college level as the CEO of a program in the NIL era? At a program that's not really flush with cash in that area.
Yeah. But you think about what they've got coming back. Castellanos talked about his running game. If he can cut down on those turnovers big. Running back Kai Robichaux comes back. Really, really good player. Kind of surprised he didn't get, I'll say, better NIL opportunities in the portal. So they've got some guys coming back. They added a couple running backs in there to help depth. They brought in Kamari Morales as well, tight end from North Carolina. Morales is the all-time leader for North Carolina receiving for tight ends.
Wow.
And so now he goes to Boston College. So to me, that's a big deal.
Yeah, I like Boston College. I like some of the pieces that they have. You talked about what they brought in. I mean, in college football, the pressure should be on your quarterback. My question, the biggest question mark is they're going to go as far as Castellanos takes them. And we saw, look, I mean, I believe you watched the game. I know I did because it was before an LSU game. That Boston College, Georgia Tech game, that was an example of where a game where you went into a place where you probably should have lost, but he found a way because he was just elusive. He's a great athlete. He can do a lot of different things for you well. And when that clicks, you're going to be able to beat some teams that maybe you shouldn't have beaten on paper. So, look, I like what Boston College has essentially in coming into the season. I don't think we said they might be a bottom feeder. I think that this conference is just going to be really tough. And I know we joke about it. The ACC is a conference that doesn't have a ton of separation. And so you are going to have, weeks, and unfortunately, there's no more divisions, so we don't have coastal chaos anymore like we usually had. But you're going to have, weeks where the upsets happen. The spreads, they look ridiculous that Vegas would have ever set those. But I like where we sat with that. I mean, it's a bowl team, but worst case scenario, 4-8. I mean, disappointing.
They made a bowl game last year, and they're bringing back their two biggest pieces on offense. They're adding to the offense, so I think offensively they'll be there. They're going to change their defense. They'll have to adjust early in the year for that, but they were not that bad last year. Now, again, all depends on what Bill O'Brien looks like coming in because it's totally different than Jeff Hafley. But